music on. Get hope started. Okay, let's see if I got any improvement today. Well, gotta shift these things around. This is lost cause for this attempt. Let's see. Or not. I just set it up properly, right? Yeah, I did. Interesting. Looks like I am processing it faster. So that helps. What do we talk about today? Not sure what would be useful to talk about. I mean, this has been on my mind since I saw... Oh, hey, Violet Pink Panic. I'm doing well. Just back at the grind. I'm using a custom program now to repeat certain pictures. So I'm looking at properly rendered drawings instead of just like mannequins. And I'm hoping that I eventually memorize the features. But I was just about to go into a conversation about something that's been on my mind recently. And that's how people keep saying that they need to be disciplined to do something. And I don't know, it just bothers me because it kind of implies that if you lack discipline, you would be doing the thing that you're trying not to do. It's like a temporary fix, so they're kind of treating the symptom but not treating the root cause. I'm of the camp that you need to be devoted to something if you want it to stick, because if you're just disciplined, then it's always going to revert back, because discipline is just what you use to stop you from backpedaling. And the analogy that comes to mind is if you have a lover and you say you're disciplined about not cheating, then that implies that you're going to cheat if you don't have discipline. Versus if you say you're devoted to your partner, which means that they're the only thing on your mind when it comes to partners. Is that sort of deal. And I've just noticed this like big uptick in people saying they need to be more disciplined, and that's just not actually changing anything. So it kind of bothers me. I think I understand where they're coming from, because the meaning of the word discipline probably changes. Like just words in general and concepts have a tendency to change over time. But it still annoys me, since it's like, if you're using discipline, you're forcing yourself to do something. And if you force yourself to do anything, eventually that force will fade and then you're left in the dust. I just want people to make lasting changes if they're going to implement changes, instead of just like forcing themselves for a bit and then hoping it sticks, because crashing down is always worse when you have to redo it and lose everything. Speaking from personal experience. It's just the I guess the trend of social media. I don't know. I've been on a lot more social media these days. I think they say doom scrolling. I'm not really doom scrolling because I don't just sit there. I just scroll through it while I'm doing my workout. But I noticed that people use discipline all the time as like a buzzword now. And they're all using it with different definitions, and that kind of bothers me. it doesn't help when it seems to be a lot of younger people, like teenagers or early 20s. And either them or like established quote unquote motivational speakers, life coaches. They're selling medicine basically and not treating the root cause. Not into conspiracies, but it's like the equivalent of big pharma, you know? I guess I'm in a ranty sort of mood today, but that's been on my mind since I've been looking at more social media. I've mostly been looking at it because I want to start using it more often, since it's basically the tool to promote things these days, especially if you're doing any sort of creation. I've just been studying what people do. I know how it works now, I just don't agree with the way it works. Because it's actually a very simple principle for how algorithms work, or how the algorithm pushes things out. Basically, if something holds a user's attention for an extended period of time, and then the user interacts with it, I think it's a combination of both. Depending on the overall watch time, as well as the interactivity metrics, the content will get pushed out more or less. You can tinker with this variable in different ways. Like if you have a very short piece of content, like say 10 seconds or so, the skip rate for that will be very low due to the fact that it's so short. Because of that, the algorithm actually rewards you by pushing it out to more people. You can chain this effect with controversial takes that basically make someone emotional enough to stick around and see what the heck you're talking about. And then if you continue to do this, you'll eventually attract more and more people, which will push out more and more of your content. Then the key is to have one super duper viral, contradictory, and controversial take, which will push out your content more in general, which will lead to followers and the like. It doesn't take too much to figure out the algorithm. The problem is just whether that aligns with your life goals, and then I just don't like doing that. I'd very much rather just stick to doing what I can and accumulating over time, since a steady accumulation will not backslide. You have basically a mountain to work from then, compared to if you just had snowballed and lacked substance. Whoops, let's see. There we go. But that's just my read on the current situation. People have lost the plot. A lot of the social media content creators have absolutely lost the plot. They're focusing too much on money. I mean, money is good, and it's definitely a necessity for life. But money is a social construct. And if you focus on obtaining something that isn't real, you'll just end up continuously chasing it. It's kind of like a mirage in an oasis, or mirage of an oasis in a desert. You're not really ever quenching your thirst if you chase money, because the odds are you're actually chasing something deeper that you think money can resolve. Which it can, but it's very easy to lose sight of the deeper meaning when you're not careful. And that is the issue that I'm seeing a lot of content creators face on social media when I'm scrolling through. People are just like following what other people are do. It's a giant echo chamber as far as I can see. I'm not even talking about a lack of originality, because they do put their spin on the thing that they're doing, but the core of the content is the same. Like, I guess it's kind of like the situation of isekai anime. They're all in the same genre, and they're not being themselves. It's just kind of like they're chasing the bag. Oh, that's an alert. Forgot my phone notifications were up. Let me mute that. I guess that's the creator dilemma that people face right now, right? Do you make what you want to make and express yourself fully, or do you do what will provide you with money? I think that what people forget, though, is that money is just simply a reflection of value. If what you have actually holds value, what you're facing is not a quality issue or a money issue. What you're facing is a visibility issue. And that's an easy fix. If you know your stuff is good, you just have to be completely and utterly shameless in promoting it. You make alt accounts, you make videos, you send out free samples to people. If what you have is complete, and if what you have is good, then you just promote it. That's it. Very simple. But you can tell if what you have is good. Like, if you are secure in your own abilities, and if you know what you have is of a higher value than other people, or if it has an intrinsic value, just gotta promote it. Gotta be shameless about it, because you know it's good and that it will help people out. If you don't feel that it's good, though, then that's a different problem you're facing. You need to resolve that first before doing anything else. Otherwise, you're never going to break past a limiting belief that you have there. If you're a creator, you need to be confident in what you are making. And confidence is born from technical ability, as well as the repository of works you have created. If you just made one thing that you call your masterpiece. And if you put all of your hopes on that one thing, you are too heavily invested in it. And then you're going to self-identify with your work. That's no good, since a rejection of that work will be perceived as a rejection of your own self. So the solution to that is to just keep continuously creating. If you make so much and so often, then you can't feel attached to any one work because you just have too many to choose from. It's kind of that mindset that the greats of the past worked from. They just created so much that it didn't matter if any particular piece of work paid off, because they're just constantly in creation mode, and eventually one thing will stick. Throw enough stuff at the wall and something will be there even after everything else falls down. That's the approach that you need to take, especially in this era of high-paced content creation in general. But the catch is what to create. Do you follow the trends of what seems to be popular, or do you stick to what you want to create, right? I think that's the philosophical dilemma that the creators face right now, especially when AI is being pushed so much. You can just create so much quantity of content in bulk by using AI that people are losing faith in just their own creative ability. But honestly, I think that they forget the purpose of creation. You can copy the form with AI, but you can't copy the intent. Well, I guess that's not necessarily true. If you are a creative and you're using AI to create, then that's a different thing entirely. Still, something that is created with your own hands and your own skills will hold more meaning than something that is just generated with your words, for example. Shaping every single part of the process basically just puts more of yourself into the mix. And by putting more of yourself into the mix, it becomes more you, more unique. But people need to remember that being unique isn't really that much of an important thing too. It's not about standing out from everyone else. If you go out of your way to be quote-unquote unique, you're going to end up being disingenuous, since what happens is you are not showcasing parts of yourself. Everyone is a unique combination of things, but everyone is not completely unique too. Like, if you like XYZ and is similar to this person or this thing, you don't have to go out of your way to just be different. You can show how you're the same and just show your interpretation of it. It's all of this problem of people trying to either fit in or not wanting to fit in, and then going out of their way to either fit the mold or go against the mold. They're missing the boat. They're forgetting the plot. The point is, like what Bruce Lee once said, honestly expressing oneself. If it's a part of you, showcase that part of you. There's no need to be shy about it. If you're a basic sort of person, then you just are a basic sort of person. If you dislike that about yourself, then you change it. But if that's honestly you, then just be you. Show it off. The hardest part these days, at least the gist that I can get from social media, is that a lot of people don't know how to express themselves. They've gotten too used to basically obeying other people. Part of that, I think, is the societal issue with the boomer generation telling, I think, millennials and Gen Zs to just obey, to not ask questions, to follow the process, achieve the dream, get a steady 9 to 5 and all of that. There's definitely a big societal issue of repressed expression, which is ironic considering the whole Vietnam War hippie generation too, but setting that aside. Social media has kind of exacerbated that issue because since they're all based on algorithms, unless you are specifically looking at only people you follow, you're going to be fed more and more of the same things, which will mean that you end up hyper funneling on a particular belief system. And that is how you end up losing your core sense of self. You start kind of just accepting the messages coming across whatever you're faced on your feed with. If it sounds reasonably logical, your brain probably will not reject it. At least that's the gist I get from seeing people in public use social media, as well as just the content on social media platforms. What I think people need to do now, I think I mentioned it before too, is to kind of train your force of will. You have to actively agree or disagree with what you're hearing. It goes back to active listening skills. The whole point of social media is that it kind of wants you to be passive, to just accept the information flowing towards you because there's so much information coming towards you too. So by doing that, the average person loses control of their chain of thoughts and ego, especially if the content creator that they are observing has a very strong conviction or personality. It'll result in a sort of just osmosis effect. And I think this is where a lot of the discourse or such vitriolic comments and posts online come from. because people are listening so intently while also not actively interacting with what they consume through social media, whatever they hear becomes a part of their identity. It becomes the inner building blocks of their self. So anything that contradicts that causes enough mental dissonance to elicit a very violent interaction. At the same time, I think there's a complete lack of, what's the word? Self-agency? Self-control? Basically, people don't feel like they have much say in life, but they can comment and have their words seen online. And the sensation of being seen is what becomes addicting in this world where most people are passively listening. It basically becomes a momentary wake-up call. Because when you're confronted with an opinion or information that contradicts the normal flow, you get snapped out of the daze that you're in. And in being snapped out of the daze, you become not quite yourself, but at least someone who can choose. And most people choose to comment, make their thoughts, emotions, and beliefs very well known. That's why politics and all those subjects are so touchy. People very much attribute their core belief systems into it. It's very faction-based. Not only that, but since there appears to be a all-or-nothing mentality being, not even being pushed, at this point it's being adopted by the greater society, things are just interesting. If you choose to not engage, people assume you don't care and they're annoyed at you for not caring. And because they are annoyed at you for not caring, they try to do whatever they can to force you to care. Because to them, it's inconceivable on why you would not care, because it's a part of their core set of beliefs. What people forget is that everyone has chosen a particular path in life to walk. And some people are willing to lay down their lives to walk that path. Trying to convince people who have chosen to lay down their paths that you are correct is not only foolhardy, it's how you create a lifelong enemy and or a lethal disaster coming your way. So it's always important to be mindful of what it is that you are choosing to do, because if what you are choosing to do is something that you do not want to lay down your life for, if the cause you're supporting is not one you would be willing to die for, odds are likely that you need to be very careful, because there are some people who have nothing to lose and who will lay down their lives to support the cause that they believe in, because they treat their own sense of self as disposable, or they want their grand moment of fame. Yeah, society is in a volatile state at the moment, which is why I am just spending my time creating silly little things, speaking on these subjects to make people just think a bit more and hopefully realize the value of their, I won't even say free will, but force of will. Pacifying the masses is a saying that people use, and unfortunately that is definitely what is going on too, because it just becomes difficult to care about things when so much is happening, right? That's what they want you to think, but that's also not true. You just have to be mindful of what you're willing to lay down your life for. It's something that people don't really think about, but something that I think about a lot. I would rather die than do this. There has to be something in your life for which that statement is true. If not, then you're not really living, you're just going with the flow. Life only has meaning because it will end. Otherwise, there is no meaning. Just like how the moon exists. The meaning of the moon is what we have attributed to it. It's all just made up, arbitrary. So you have to define the boundaries in order for there to be meaning. I'm probably just talking in circles again, but hopefully there are some gems of insight in this rambling. Maybe the saying about authors are true. You gotta be a little insane to stay in your own head and write an entire cast of characters. It's also why so many are on watch lists. The things that you have to search up. But yeah, going back to the first point, the very first point I made, devotion. Find what you want to devote your life to. That will take you further than discipline will. Discipline only stops you from doing things. It doesn't actually make you do anything. Discipline doesn't make you get out of bed. It just stops you from sleeping in. But some things cannot be stopped or cannot be done with the negative. They can only be performed with the positive. That's what devotion is. Yeah, no, faces are still out of the question. Maybe I should... Nah. There's nothing I should do, it's only what I choose to do. I'm still choosing to focus on the posing. Everything else will make sense in time. Oh, I forgot to update the stream, shoot. Well, that's gonna be awkward. Anyone watching the VODs are gonna be like, why is it day 15 twice in a row or something? But it's all priorities. If you don't remember about it, or if you don't remember it, then odds are likely you had something else prioritized. My priority was just starting the stream. That has more value to me than the stream information being correct and whatnot. After all, you can label the stream whatever you want, but if you have no stream, then you have no stream, right? That's also another interesting thing I've noticed. I mean, it's always been a thing where people will talk about their plans more than execute them. But I think it's even more prevalent these days because of social media, since talking kind of has a value of its own. I wonder, this is just my hypothesis, but I wonder if a lot of content creators don't actually practice what they preach. Like, they'll say they gave up their entire job, moved to another country, risked it all, put it on the line, but they didn't. It's just a story they tell to sell hope. And by selling hope, they get money because they get attention. And attention is currency in this day and age where social media and advertisements coexist. I just wonder about that because that's funny. I kind of have the ability to pick up on when people are lying. And some people I meet or come across on my feed just seem disingenuous. Like something isn't quite right. I think I'm picking up a mask that they're wearing, which is why it bothers me. But I don't know. And calling people out isn't very useful either. Making enemies when you do not intend to do battle is just adding difficulty to your life that's unwarranted. That's like not a hill I want to die on, you know? Speaking of hills to die on, again, back to devotion. Find what you're willing to die for. Find your hill to die on. You have to be someone with a strong conviction in something in order to properly navigate in a life where everything and everyone is trying to grab a piece of your attention. Especially since, well, attention is life. You see, the life you live is formed from the choices you make and the time you spend. The time you spend and the choices you make are determined by your attention. So, if you have your attention stolen by things like social media and content creators, or just content in general, then you are not living your life. You are pausing it, postponing it. Some would call it procrastination. I call it stasis. You have accidentally let yourself slip into a state of mind where you're letting people who are not you run your life. It's quite dangerous to be in that state because you're also quite malleable when you're in that state. And that's never a good thing unless you are actively trying to change who you are. But you know, in life you probably shouldn't be trying to change who you are constantly. Because if you just keep changing your entire being you're never existing, or you're never living. If who you are today is completely different from who you are yesterday, then you kind of don't exist. It's important to have like a core conviction. You can build your entire self around that thing, but if you don't have that thing, then you're just kind of an empty shell. Which is good in its own way, since that means you can fill it with anything you want. But it's still a bit troublesome. Let's see. Wow, 40 minutes already. I've been yapping that long. I didn't realize I had so much to say today. I guess that I must really be put out by the current state of society and social media then. Not sure why it bothers me so much. No, I am sure. It's because people are not being people anymore. It just reminds me so much of actual NPCs. Like, people joke about NPC behavior and main character behavior, but I really do see it. Like, there are some people who I encounter, either online or in person, that could literally be replaced by an NPC and I wouldn't know the difference, because they are that generic. The actions they take and the interactions are so, like, scripted almost. Like, I can anticipate everything that they're going to do or say, and they don't change. Like, it's as if they have a set dialogue tree that they completely do not deviate from. They'll repeat the exact same verbatim words or lines, take the same actions, do the same things, talk about something that's happening in the future, like an event flag in a game, foreshadowing XYZ, but never actually doing it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I started viewing life as more of a video game, but it's weird. Very weird. Don't be one of those weird peoples. Have some conviction. Main character energy. You gotta live your life. You can't just be drifting through it and hoping that things end up your way. Speaking of hoping that things end up your way, I hear a lot about manifestation, manifesting things, having things just materialize in response to prayers or wishes. Like, that sounds nice. I don't doubt that it happens, but I see people banking on it. They think that just strong conviction and belief will be sufficient to materialize whole lifetimes or whole life, I guess just whole lifestyles in their experience. But like, hello? Manifestation, it just doesn't work as well as creation does. If you think about something, you can't think something into existence. Like, just as an example, just stare at your arm. You can't think for your arm to move. You have to move your arm. You can't just say, okay, arm, now lift yourself up. Go grab this thing, close your fingers around it, and then hand it over and stuff like that. That's not how it works. You have to move your arm. Motion, action. Creation isn't just done through the word. I mean, I guess, if I remember right, the Bible said that the world was created when he said, let there be light. But are you really going to compare yourself to an omnipotent, almighty, omniscient, and omnipresent being? You think you can just say things into existence without taking any action whatsoever? That's more than delusional. Because delusion at least has some basis in your belief system. Like, you can be delusional about something that might not happen, but you're mentally ill. If you just think that thoughts alone are going to change your external reality, that's not delusion, that's just completely wrong. You can definitely change your internal reality with that. You can manifest a new creation, new character traits, for example. Thoughts alone can completely reshape your inner world. And then it's true that by reshaping your inner world, you'll naturally begin to rearrange your outer world to reflect it. That's similar to what they mean by manifestation, and that's probably the proper meaning of manifestation. But I'll be hearing people talk about it like as if all they need to do is stand in front of a mirror and then have like a, what's the word, goal board, or like a board with, oh yeah, vision board with everything they want, and just staring at it will make it happen. Like someone will come in to save you. That's not how it works. How it works is that you use that vision board as a means to get very particular about the objectives that you want to complete. When you're very particular about said objectives, you can begin to work backwards from the necessary prerequisites to attain whatever is on that vision board. And then once you know the prerequisites, the only next step is to just take actions that close the gap between you and what you see. Because what you see is a tangible thing. Like, take for example, say that your dream house or your dream and your vision is to have a $1 million mansion. I don't think mansions cost $1 million anymore. I think they're actually worth more than that, but let's assume that's the objective, right? Say you want to achieve it before you turn 20 and you're 15 right now. You can do the math and break down the costs of obtaining that mansion. So then you start by breaking down your yearly income, not even the yearly income, but just the amount of money you need to make per year in order to achieve it by that deadline. So if you're 15 and then you want to get it by 20 and it's $1 million, divide that million by 5, and you have what? I cannot math right now. Is it 200,000, right? So you need to make $200,000 a year. Okay, that's a lot, but you can break it down. So $200,000 a year breaks down to, let's just do by 10, so that it's the math is easier. So that's $20,000 a month. Probably a bit more than that, but we'll stick to $20,000 a month. Okay, so then that's $20,000 a month. You break that down by 30 days per month on average. Then that becomes what, $7,000 a day? Then you can divide that to let's say a 10-hour work day, and you work 7 days a week. So then that means you need to make $70 an hour, or is it $700? Either way, you can benchmark all of that, and then you can just filter activities that would allow you to obtain that goal. Clearly, you're not going to do it by working part-time as a cashier or a clerk. You're also not going to do it by working a normal job, even a high-end job like an attorney or a surgeon or something like that. You need to be the best attorney or the best surgeon in the nation in order to achieve that rank. No, what you're going to realize is that you need something that scales at a high level without a cap. Not only that, you'll realize that your hours are not sufficient because time is your bottleneck. So what you need to do then is you need to think about what is it that you can generate which will provide you a high monetary value while also not being bound by time. The conclusion that you'll come to is you'll either create a product or you're going to create a service with tipping so people can just give money to you. Now, if you focus on tipping, and if there's no upper cap to that, you need to be like the best of the best. You need to just reach a level of skill that people undoubtedly feel indebted to you and will repay that via tips. You have to provide so much value in their life that they will return the favor. That's one path. It's also a much more hard and difficult path, but it's very rewarding, because if you can succeed like that, you know that you're of a certain caliber in the world that can't be replicated, at least not easily. The other method is, like I said, to sell a product. Now, the fun thing about selling a product is that the quality actually doesn't matter, just the quantity. And I believe that's why so many people are doing what's called quote-unquote AI slop. People are out there who will spend like $1 or $2 to buy just cheap things just to see what they're like. It's kind of like how people will buy an impulse candy bar when they're checking out. Or why, if they're not paying attention, they'll just listen to whatever plays on the radio. That's what the people who are doing the AI slop are counting on. Their customers are the ones who don't care that the quality is low. They just want a quick fix that roughly meets the criteria. And they don't care about the person behind the goods. They care about the goods themselves. It's a commodity. What AI has been doing to the creative art space is that it is commodifying creation. At least somewhat. It's kind of like how artisan juices exist, right? You can get generic Minute Maid, but there also exists the high-end artisan juices, say like from, is it Vermont, that have apple trees and stuff? Things like that. The creative space is just shifting to where there is now basically a new class of goods that exist among art, music, and well, just any type of creative work. It's literally AI slop. But the problem is that it makes it accessible for the general populace. And that's the conflict. Beforehand, if you wanted to have a customized artwork, you would have to either hire someone to do it or do it yourself. But now, for a relatively cheap price, the AI models exist which allow you to make what you want. It might not be exactly what you want, but it's close enough, and that's the selling point of it all. Close enough. Because to the average person, close enough is what matters. It's like if you're hungry, you can either have an artisan sandwich with ingredients that are healthy for you, or you can go buy a cheap tuna salad sandwich from the gas station. For the busy and then also not picky consumers, and maybe also the consumers without much money, they will go pick up that tuna salad sandwich instead of what they know is good for them or what they know is good, because they want to be fed. And people feel like they're being fed with the AI models, since it's allowing you to borrow skills and techniques outside your normal set of abilities. Now, obviously, the ideal situation is for them to just learn how to do it, or to go through the proper channels. But it's kind of the same argument as telling someone to stop eating donuts and sweets and then eat properly. They like the junk food because it's convenient, and because it does the job temporarily, even if they know it's killing them long term. That sort of mindset is what is undoubtedly fueling the AI rush. The problem is that AI is also not sustainable. And more than that, it is cannibalistic. It seems to be creative, but it's not actually making anything new. It's just following what it has been fed. It's like it's just actually a randomizer. There is no new thing. Not completely. Now, it can be used as the baseline for new things, but we're talking about the average consumer here. They're not doing that. And I think we're slowly hitting the tipping point where people are starting to be annoyed by AI generated content, because of the fact that it's just, not real, and like saying the same stuff. What people who are in creative endeavors forget is that it's not about the quality of what they're making that matters. Instead, it's about the expression. They're bringing new things into existence. And it's only by continuously bringing new things into existence that humanity as a whole can advance. AI can never do that, at least not until it becomes what I would call synthetic intelligence, where they are our peers. But that does not exist yet, or if it does, it's highly regulated and hidden in a black site somewhere. But I doubt it, because if that existed, then the internet would be cooked. Skynet would be a thing. Not to mention that it would probably be a complete machine uprising entirely with how the current state of affairs are. A synthetic intelligence would definitely be able to parse everything that's going on in the world and then determine that the optimal solution is to just eliminate a vast majority of life. But that's enough on that subject. Basically, if you're in the creative endeavor, if you're in the creative industry, I'll say, I guess the hard part would be making money. If you rely on it entirely for your funds, you would need to find a way to make it sustainable. I suppose the difficulty that a lot of people who are in the creative industries and trying to make money at the same time face is that they take a long time to create, right? Because they see art as an act of self-expression, they often spend quite a lot of time on what they're making. That time factor is definitely what is bottlenecking them. The solution is simple but difficult at the same time. Just learn how to streamline your process to be able to produce a work of art in a shorter time period. Simplify. Reduce complexity as much as you can and speed up the time. Reduce the time cost. Whether that's by having pre-rendered poses, templates, or references, stuff like that. You just gotta... It's not cheating, but like, have your own way to catch up. That's part of it's part of the reason why I'm practicing like this, where I'm only spending 30 seconds on the posing. It's because I want to develop a training or a style that can be very quickly completed. Output is the name of the game. Sacrificing quality a bit for quantity is the trade-off that you need to make. I wonder if pride is what's stopping them from doing that. You see, I come from a writing first perspective, where even when I write, I just create. I don't really care about whether it's edited or not, because of the fact that I've reached a level where I know that even my worst is acceptable. So what I do is I just go on my worst. If you just run enough attempts, then you're going to undoubtedly make a masterpiece, because you can rely on luck then to shore up the gap. I think that's what they forget. I don't know. I don't usually talk to other creators or artists in general. But my gist of it is that a lot of artists who do commissions and stuff like that take a while to complete their works. And then because it takes so long, they kind of undercharge themselves based on the time too. Like, they will have a full body that takes them 20 hours to render, but only charge, what, like $200? So then is it $2? Let's see. 20 hours, $200, $10 per hour, right? So it's like below minimum wage for that drawing, even though it takes up so much of their time. Not to mention that art is also, if you aren't familiar with it, if you haven't done enough artwork, you don't have a good read for how many hours it'll take for something to be finished. And then that will lead you to losing out on the opportunity to get more work. So I just wonder if they have taken that into consideration. It's not that I would discourage anyone from relying on their skills in art to make a living. It's that I want them to understand the reality that for them in particular, time is money. If your output does not align with the expenses you are required to pay, you have two options. Find a secondary source of revenue, or increase the efficiency of your time of creation. That's also why I'm taking a hiatus from writing personally. I'm working on building a sustainable as well as productive method of writing, and the systems that would allow me to continuously create and provide value to my consumers, my readers, my audience. If you can't do that, if it's not sustainable, then honestly, you need to go back to the drawing board and rework your skill set. If it's taking you a whole week to do if it's taking you like a whole week to do something that only gives you $100, and if it's the only thing you can be working on in that time period too, it's not sustainable. Your skill set is not yet at the level that allows you to live from it. So you have a few choices. You go back to get another job to supplement it while you build your craft. You find a way to reduce your expenses. That's either by like living with someone, having a partner that supports you, XYZ, something like that. Or you I guess just give up on it for a bit and then just focus strictly on grinding it, because you need to remove all of the waste in creation. If you're still very much spending a lot of time doing a certain step, you need to go and perfect that step to remove the time sinks, since time is very valuable for you if you're doing commissions. I mean, I guess you could... What I see a lot of people do for commissions to resolve that issue is that they'll take the payment up front and then start like a queue, right? But the problem is that it becomes too easy to just have that money, and then you also get hung up with guilt for not completing commissions, and you start building up dread. I think this is also probably why a lot of artists have anxiety issues and mental health issues. It's I suppose it's just difficult. I don't know. I can't I mean, I can empathize and I can understand where they're coming from, but I just would not choose that. For me, if I'm doing something, I have to perceive at least a 50% chance of success in doing so. Because that means that every time I perform the activity, it's a coin flip whether I succeed and gain value or not. That's why I'm actually streaming this and talking while I am studying these poses and everything, because it's 50-50. Either I will get a sudden art epiphany on how to make the drawing more efficient, or because my brain is preoccupied by the act of constructing these drawings, I'll dig into my thoughts and then subconsciously process the things that I've been thinking about in the form of random insights on this stream, which I can review on rewatching the VOD. So this is like a twofold beneficial activity. Very useful. What time is it? Oh, it's already been an hour and 12 minutes. Well, okay, I'll leave that there. Hopefully it was enlightening. It was fun drawing and hanging out. And I hope that rambling, or at least my rambling, was somewhat insightful. I'll catch you... It's Thursday, right? Friday's tomorrow. Yeah, I'll catch you tomorrow, around the same time-ish. Hope you're doing well. Take care for now. Bye.